Traders, how are you? Marcello here, founder of the Day Trading Academy. Today we're doing the recap of what happened in the markets last week. So don't forget that the podcast is available for all of you that want to listen to the recap or all the other videos that we're going to upload. You can find those on the blog, daytradingacademy.com/blog. Download it directly from there, or iTunes or Spotify. If you guys can't find it where you guys normally listen to, let me know, and I'll make sure to go ahead and get it syndicated over there for you. Questions, hashtag Ask Marcello, no H, 2 L's. And also don't forget to subscribe. So overall this week, we had a good week for the markets. A lot of different pieces of news that actually helped the markets go up. One of the main things, the Europeans deciding that they're going to do a lot more QE or lax fiscal policy. They lowered interest rates as well. I'll get into that in just a moment. And also a big thing as well, there were some concessions from China and each side, U.S. and China, in regards to the trade war, which is kind of the biggest thing, kind of holding back the economy, or let's say putting a weight on the economy. Overall for the week, the Dow was up 1.58%, the S&P 500 0.94%, and the NASDAQ 0.91%. The Dow and the S&P 500 are literally a stone's throw away from actually getting to record highs. Overseas market news, the world stock markets are up at their highest point that they were at in the last 6 weeks as the ECB prepares for new stimulus measures. The ECB is the European Central Bank. US and China also made the mutual concessions in the ongoing trade dispute, as I just mentioned before. That's why there was a ferocious demand for the actual equities, for stocks. European markets are mostly higher. The DAX is up 2.27%. Istanbul was just over 4%, but they're a little bit, they're always going to be kind of a lot more positive, a lot more negative. They're emerging economy. The Swiss and Russian markets are the ones that were negative this week in Europe, if you consider Russia, Europe, right? Even though landmass, it's Asia. But they had a very small negative weeks. Latin America and Canada as well. The Merval in Argentina was the biggest winner at 8.95%. If you guys remember, after the election primaries, it went down literally 50%. Then after that, it just tanked for weeks on end. Last week, remember, it was just over 8%. Now it's over 8% again. So very, very good results, starting to recover. And the biggest loser for the week, actually, we don't have any losers in Latin America. African and Middle Eastern markets, South Africa went up 2.76%. Saudi Arabia went down 2.85%. Asian and Australian markets are mostly higher as well. The Japanese is the biggest winner at 3.72%. And Hong Kong is positive 2.48%. For all my traders out there in the Philippines markets were up 0.74%. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency news. An anonymous entity made one of the biggest transactions in Bitcoin history with 94,504 Bitcoins that they sold, with the price near, I should say the price near around 10,600. It was worth almost $1 billion. And many of you guys don't realize that Bitcoin cryptos are not regulated, for example, like Forex, right, or CFDs or binary options. So they can just kind of do whatever they want. And the majority of people that own Bitcoin is a very, very small percentage of the people that actually own it. So 96%, if I remember the number correctly that came out in the report, is literally owned by 4% of the people. Imagine that. Switzerland is going to decide to host their digital money project, the Libra, in Switzerland. The U.S. is urging Switzerland to ensure that the regulations governing cryptocurrencies are sufficient to prevent abuse for things like money laundering and terrorism. They're seeking to get a payment license with the Swiss financial watchdog called FINMA. France and Germany, which I predicted. Remember, I always told you guys, the thing with cryptos is there's two different systems, right? You have blockchain, which is the technology, and then you have the digital currencies, which use the blockchain. So when a lot of people say Bitcoin, they're talking about these two together. I don't believe, and I've said this a million times, that the digital currencies or the cryptos are going to be what people say they are. They'll still exist. They'll go up and down. You can buy and sell and make some money, but they're not going to take over the financial system. Whereas blockchain is really what's going to revolutionize everything. Because at the end of the day, I don't believe that governments are going to allow a private entity or give away control of the financial system. Well, as I predicted, France and Germany they're going to block the consumer, block the Libra, the Facebook project for the digital currency, until there's a consumer risk and government monetary sovereignty are addressed. And also they want to have, in true European bureaucratic fashion, they want to have a common set of rules to govern virtual currencies. You know, they need a board and a room and more rules and taxes. And also a creation of European public digital currency. Bitcoin for the week is down 4.91% at 10,213.10 cents. Financial and banking news, the ECB, remember, European Central Bank, promises indefinite supply of new asset purchases, restarting bond purchases. The Germans did not like that at all. They're going, in the news, they're going off because they're very fiscally sound. They're going to cut interest rates by 10 basis points. It's going to go at a record low of negative 0.5%. And they're going to be buying 20 billion euros worth, $22 billion a month of bonds starting November 1st, which they stopped last December 2018. And obviously this is all an effort to help the Eurozone, which it might help a little bit, but what are they going to do when the actual recession hits? And they can't, well, what are they going to do? Go to negative 10%? Like, Frankenstein economics. It just doesn't work that way. Japan's central bank is also meeting next week. Their interest rates are already very low, so investors want to see if the central bank are actually going to ease the monetary policy even further. U.S. President Trump is calling on the Fed to push our interest rates in the United States negative as well, to be able to compete and battle with lower economic growth compared to the rest of the world. So he basically wants the Fed, the central bank of the U.S., to lower rates to be able to go ahead and compete with the other markets since they're doing it. And obviously he wants things to go well for his re-election. And remember, one of the things I always want to remind you guys, I'm never going to get political on this show. So remember that it doesn't matter if you love Trump, hate Trump, love Obama, hate Obama. At the end of the day, my personal opinion, government is the problem, not the right or left. But I'm never going to get political, so it doesn't matter who you love, what you like. I'm just going to present the facts and what they mean so you guys can understand what it all means, okay? Other than that, the Fed did cut interest rates in July for the first time in over a decade. And the expectation is that they're going to continue to lower them as well, but the expectation is not going to be that they're going to go right away into negative rates. Commodities, crude oil futures are lower. U.S. crude is down 3.01% at $54.88. International Brent is down 2.14% at $60.22. Remember that oil is still down over 10% for the month. Saudi Arabia desperately needs the I'm confusing two words, to balance its massive budget deficit. Say that 3 times fast. To balance its massive budget deficit. To balance its massive deficit. You guys got it. And so they want to pull off a $2 trillion valuation for Saudi Aramco, which is their government state oil company. That is going to require a lot higher prices, and they decided to install a new oil minister, which is part of the royal family. It's the third in just over 3 years, and that basically shows how important this is to them. U.S. oil prices did fall over 2% on Friday after Trump decided to let John Bolton go, or he resigned, whatever the case may be, but he's no longer part of the team. Known as a warmonger, person who wants to go out and have war, which is a little bit different than the expectation of what Trump wanted with Iran or in general. There's expectation now that some of the tensions might ease between Iran and the United States, and a military conflict is less likely. That's what people believe now. OPEC agreed on Thursday to trim oil output that help oil prices. They asked Iraq and also Nigeria to bring output in line with the original targets. The United States also briefly overtook Saudi Arabia to become the top exporter for the first time earlier this year due to the booming shale output. In gold and silver, China added 100 tons of gold to its reserves since it resumed buying in December 2018. And Russia also is continuing to diversify away from the U.S. treasuries, and their gold holdings are now at over $100 billion, which is up 42% in the past year alone. Gold is down 1.28% to 1,488. Silver is down 4.57% to 1,752. If you guys are traders or watch the financial markets, you guys remember I talked about silver. That's what I'm mostly kind of swing trading right now. Beautiful run to the upside. If you guys want me to do an update on how I'm trading right now with silver, let me know. Right now I'm waiting for silver to come back down a little bit to go ahead and look for more opportunities. Remember, educational purposes only. We're not trading advisors. We don't trade people's money. You guys are responsible for what you guys do with your money. So if you guys are interested in silver or anything else I talk about, make sure you guys go out and do your research, okay? Political news: Russia's ruling party, the United Russia Party, which supports President Putin, had their Sunday's nationwide local elections. They lost 1/3 of their seats in the Moscow City Assembly, but retained its majority. There's a lot of public anger of 5 years of falling incomes because of, more than anything, the U.S. sanctions, and an unpopular hike in the pension age also helped the Moscow protests. In economic news, Japan is saying that their economy grew slower than what they anticipated in Q2. It actually grew at 1.3% instead of 1.8%, which was expected. The number of Americans filing applications for unemployment benefits fell to a 5-month low last week, suggesting that the U.S. labor market remains strong despite slowing job growth, declined 15,000 to the seasonally adjusted 2004,000. Boeing delivered about 25% as many planes in August as it did a year ago. The pushing total deliveries in 2019, they're down by more than 40% as they're still dealing with the huge fiasco. 7 months now since it's been grounded, the 737 MAX jet. OxyContin maker Purdue Pharma LP reached a tentative agreement with some plaintiffs to resolve the litigation over their Alledro fueling the U.S. opioid crisis. Plans to tussle with some states opposing the $12 billion settlement. Now just think about this for a second. If they made $12 billion, can you imagine, if they have to pay $12 billion, can you imagine the amount of money they made off of that? They should bill them the amount that they made in profit during that crisis. Then that would hit them where it hurts. In trade news, the Chinese economy continues to show weakness, unexpectedly shrinking of their exports unexpectedly by 1% in August. Exports to the U.S. fell 16% since a year ago, and China's foreign exchange reserves went up to $3.5 billion in August, which was an unexpected jump. Trade tensions between the U.S. and China are easing now that China decided to go ahead and make one of their biggest purchases of soy since June. They're buying about 600,000 metric tons or 10 cargoes of U.S. soy as a concession. Now, this is real funny. Now we're going to have talks. It's going to be great. And then they get pissed at each other again. Tariffs back on. Oh, no, we're going to make concessions. We're going to have talks. And tariff back on. It's just like a roller coaster. Other than that, in technology, Volkswagen's Bugatti is going to make available soon a 300+ mile-an-hour car. It's the first car made by a road car manufacturer with the fastest speed ever recorded by a machine. It's going to do over 300+ miles per hour. It's going to cost $3.9 million, and only 30 of them are going to be available if you guys got that kind of cash sloshing around. In investment news, there was a pilot strike with British Airways pilots for the first time in history, Monday and Tuesday, disrupting plans for travelers of up to 200,000 people. Its strike cost the airline $49 million a day as they went on strike, as I mentioned, for the first time in history. Hong Kong was the world's 7th largest exporter of merchandise in 2017, says the World Trade Organization. 3rd leading global financial center after New York and London. And the Bank of International Settlements, which is the central banks of central banks, the central bank of central banks, got that? It says Hong Kong, with $437 billion in forex transactions in 2016, makes it the 2nd largest foreign exchange market in Asia, the 4th largest globally in the world. WeWork owner, the We Company, slashes their valuation in their planned stock market IPO by more than 30%. They're going to list it at $20 billion instead of $47 billion. Hong Kong Exchanges and Clearing made a proposal to combine with the London Stock Exchange in a deal worth $39 billion, including debt, reinforcing that Hong Kong's position as the key connection between mainland China and Asia and the rest of the world. But the LSE, London Stock Exchange, denied it. The board denied it on Friday. Europe is creating a $100 billion consumer internet giant publicly listed in Amsterdam called Prosus. It's a spin-off of a South African consumer internet conglomerate called Naspers. Prosus is not a consumer internet company itself, but they do own 31% of Tencent, which is the Facebook of China. And this is going to allow Europe to try to compete with the United States and the Chinese as well. Prosecutors at France Parquet National Français, I feel like it's like my French accent. They're saying that Google is going to have to pay back taxes, about $510 million in back taxes and a fine of $549 million to settle their tax probe of the firm. In international events, the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, saying that he's intending to annex the Jordan Valley and the occupied West Bank if he wins the next week's elections. It's about 926 square miles, 2,400 square kilometers, and the valley is near 30% of the territory of the West Bank. That definitely is not going to go very well. On Tuesday, Venezuela's armed forces conducted military drills along the Colombian border because they're saying they want to prepare themselves for invasion, even though nobody has said that they're going to invade Venezuela. Authorities in Indian Kashmir have arrested nearly 4,000 individuals after removing the political status in August. Clear evidence that India is having quite a hard time controlling the disputed region despite the crackdown. And in unusual facts this week, Hong Kong Financial Services Development Council in a May 2008 report says that about 70% of the 100 largest banks in the world operate within Hong Kong's borders. Argentina stocks, even though they crashed by a ton, a lot of people kind of poured back into the market to try to get bargain prices ahead of the elections, even though the country is on the brink of default. Jack Ma, one of the world's most famous people, China's richest person at $40 billion, is preparing to give the reins over to somebody else. He stepped down from Alibaba, one of the biggest companies in the world, and now he's going to focus on philanthropy. He just turned 55. California lawmakers have approved the bill saying that it requires companies like Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash to treat its customers as employees. That's going to increase their cost by 30% to their already highly unprofitable business model. And opponents of the bill say that it's going to hurt individuals who want to work flexible hours. Russia wants more Asian food companies to use land in the Far East. They're saying that Asian companies now are growing or plan to grow the size of Jamaica. They're going to grow food in a territory the size of Jamaica in the Far East and Russia. Also, T. Boone Pickens passed away the last week, one of my favorite people in the world. He had a great disposition, great businessman, and a lot of great advice. He passed away at 91 in his house on Wednesday. Carl Icahn, age 83, and a legend in the American investment community, saying that he's moving his company from New York to Miami in March of 2020 due to the fact that New York has high taxes at 8.82%. His net worth is about $20.4 billion. And last but not least, Jeffrey Gundlach, which is the billionaire money manager behind DoubleLine Capital. He oversees $140 billion, says that the likelihood of a recession before the 2020 election has grown to 75% based on the yield curve. I don't believe that as much due to the fact that we're still going to have a recession, but remember what's happening with the yield curve. Remember, the inverted yield curve is an indication of a recession. Hasn't filled yet, but now since everybody has negative interest rates, which we've never had before, that's causing, I explained this to you guys last week, that's causing a pour of money into the U.S. because it's one of the only places that's secure that has positive rates, and that's part of the reason why we're getting that yield curve, and that's why it's not as indicative as it was before. So that's the news this week, guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Don't forget #AskMarcello for all the questions. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you next week.